Now, we looked at happiness, your search, the strategies we pursue in order to find that happiness. The fact of the matter is, you are still unhappy about being unhappy, or even unhappy about being happy. And so I'd like to point you to the next section of pursuing what is beyond happiness. That's the only way to solve your search, to go beyond happiness in order to find happiness. And positive psychology has come up with many ways in which you can find happiness. There are academic papers and conferences, a burgeoning movement of people who are writing from the perspective of positive psychology. And they help you identify happiness, and just at the point of identifying happiness walks in philosophy. Philosophy says, not so fast, not so easy. You need to ask some questions and pokes some holes into positive psychology. That you cannot really self-duck your way into happiness. And they have a point. Because when positive psychology meets negative philosophy, there's a challenge. Just at the edge of finding out what happiness is, philosophy deflates the expectations. You may have heard of the philosophy professor who warned his class that he was going to give a test. And on the day of the test, he came in, took his chair, put it on the table, and wrote this on the board. He said, "Prove to me that this chair does not exist." And students immediately went into writing long papers and dissertations and theses. A young man with a smirk on his face simply handed in one page with two words which said, "What chair?" question mark. And apparently he got the highest marks in his class on that exam, at least. You know, perhaps happiness is not rationally identifiable, but you know it when you have it, and you know it when you don't have it. You know intuitively as to what is happiness. Some people say happiness has to do with temperament, that there is a basic set point on which you build, that genetically you're endowed with certain personality, temperament characteristics, and after that, you're on your own. And that's why there's the quip which says, you have the right to pursue happiness, but you've got to catch it on your own. Others see happiness as depending on circumstances. For example, if you have the freedom of speech, you have the circumstance which allows you to be happy. Others see happiness as a decision or a choice. The ability and the opportunity of making decisions and choices allow you to be happy. But historically, the moral philosophers always saw happiness as a virtue, as an intellectual and a moral virtue. However, most people that I know right now will define happiness by existential, psychological features. Whether you and I have the feeling of happiness, feeling. So, happiness is not a philosophical reality, but it can be discussed philosophically, and it's a psychological reality, and we look at the psychological paradoxes now of happiness, because it'll carry huge personal and spiritual implications for you. I'm going to treat now the psychological paradoxes of happiness. Come to our website. In fact, you can read ahead of time or hear this talk ahead of time. But I'm happy to be visiting with you about happiness.